time it is? Fluent. He's chill. What's up, Jay? How you doing, man?
In effect, we got a good conspiracy theory today. I got hit with that. I was thinking, this is really interesting right here. All right.
If you believe that professional sports are scripted even a little bit, this one's gonna make you question. Then you might be right, and for those that don't, maybe question that you're wrong.
Yeah.
We're also gonna do mailbag. We got a couple good questions in mailbag. We're gonna give out our NBA. We're a little early, still a couple games left. But we're gonna give out our NBA awards for MVP, MIP, Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year. We're also gonna give a couple of team awards. Biggest surprise, biggest disappointment. But let's get to the conspiracy. I don't even know if I wanted to. Let me call it the script conspiracy. If you believe in scripting. Now, let me say this. At the end of it, I'm going to give you some really good betting advice. Because if this is true, once this happens again, just put all in. Go all your money in on what I'm about to say. Okay. So since 2002, 20 years, every NFL team that has beaten the San Francisco 49ers in the playoffs has won the Super Bowl. Let me just say it one more time. In the last 20 years, so since 2002, every NFL team that has beaten the San Francisco 49ers in the playoffs has not made it, won the Super Bowl. So let me give you some examples. In the early 2000s, I believe it was the John Gruden Bucs. Beat the San Francisco 49ers, win the Super Bowl. The Giants. Do you remember the Giants? They kind of beat a pretty good team in the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Do you know who they beat in the playoffs before doing that? The San Francisco 49ers.
Which I'm convinced we would have smoked the Patriots if we would have got to the bowl game. I'm convinced of that. We would have smoked them, dude. I'm sure of that. But anyway, keep going, Tom.
Well, yeah, if the Giants beat them, sure.
I think we would have smoked them.
Why wouldn't you think that? The Ravens. Now, granted, the Ravens beat the 49ers in the Super Bowl, so clearly they won the Super Bowl, but they beat them. Seattle. Russ and the Legion of Boom. Do you know who they had to go through to win that Super Bowl? Yeah, the 49ers. The Kansas City Chiefs, again, in the Super Bowl. And last year, the Rams. Who did they beat? The Niners. So it's a good thing that Green Bay didn't beat them, because then we would have had Green Bay as a chance. I can't live with that. So in 20 years, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams that have beaten all 6 teams that have beaten the 49ers in the playoffs win the Super Bowl. Scripted or coincidence?
I'm not a coincidence guy, Tone. I don't believe in coincidences.
Oh, no.
I don't. I'm not a coincidence guy. Things don't just happen. There's a series of events that leads up to this. Now, if you want to clock back to the 2002 season, I mean, a lot of people talk about how awesome that Tampa Bay Bucs team was, which I rival them to the 85. That defense, I rival them to the 85 Bears. I rival them to the 2001 Ravens. I rival that defense that good. I thought that we had a legit shot if we could have avoided Tampa with Jeff Garcia and Terrell Owens. But once we saw them, because we had, and ironically, Tone, we had beaten the Giants to get to we had beaten the Giants to get to Tampa, right? So with that, no, that's not true. We had beaten the Giants the next season. That's not true, Tone. I take that back. No, it is. That's the year that Tampa won the Super Bowl in January 2003. I take that back. We did beat the Giants, but I digress. When I look at what the 49ers have done and the teams that have gone through the 49ers to win it, I don't believe in coincidence, Tone. And it goes the other way, too, because the year that the 49ers went to the Super Bowl and lost to Baltimore, I said, finding out that when the Giants weren't in the playoffs, I was like, we're going to the Super Bowl. I knew of any team that was in the playoffs. I said, if the Giants, when I found out that the Giants weren't making the playoffs, I said, we're going to the Super Bowl. Because I knew that if we don't have to play them, there isn't another team in the NFC that could beat the 49ers. And turns out it was correct. But I don't believe in coincidence, Tone. No, absolutely not. Richard Sherman said that year when they beat the 49ers in the NFC Championship in January 2014, he said, quote, the 49ers are the second best team in the league. He said that.
That was also the game where he had that famous quote, that post game, that infamous post game quote. Well, we talked about. Listen, they tried to let your 49ers back into that Baltimore one. We talked about that. We talked about that one last week.
Everything that they could to give us the game back.
It's crazy to think in a 20-year span that this is possible, just coincidentally. It's really tough. And so when it was brought to my attention, I was like, hold on, I had to check it. I didn't believe it. Actually, I did when I showed it to you. The first thing you said was, "Oh, they made it to the Super Bowl," and I was like, "No, they won the Super Bowl."
And then I had to think about it. Yeah,
I did the exact same thing. I said they made it to the Super Bowl, and they're like, "No, every team that beats them wins." I said, "No way." Damn, it's really true. Well, so, as I promised, sorry, go ahead.
Well,
my betting advice will be last.
Take it a step further than that, Tone, because that's not the only conspiracy. I want you to go through some homework on Stephon Marbury. Stephon Marbury gets traded from the Minnesota Timberwolves. This is nuts, by the way. He gets traded from the Minnesota Timberwolves to the New Jersey Nets. A couple of years later, they're in the Western Conference Finals. He gets traded from the New Jersey Nets to the Phoenix Suns the next year. They're in the Eastern Conference Championship. He gets traded from the Phoenix Suns. Where did he get traded to? The New York Knicks for Steve. I think Steve Nash is now at the helm. He signs as a free agent. They're in the Western Conference Championship.
Well, is that really? That might just be selfish play of Stephon Marbury.
Oh no, man.
We'll look into that one too. But let's go back to the 49ers. So here's for anyone that's gambling, betting, whatever, here's your piece of advice. If the 49ers are in the playoffs and they lose to a team, go find your nearest outlet where your legalized gambling is and put all your money on that team winning the Super Bowl.
All of it. Don't put some of your money. All of it. Put all your dough on them, because this is that. We just told you that. Here's the evidence right here. Whoever beats the 49ers in the playoffs is winning the Super Bowl.
Now, unless they're picking a new team for the next 20 years. In that case, I'm sorry. All right. So let's move to the. Sorry, we got to do our scale. So scripted / conspiracy or just coincidence, 1 through 10.
Well, I tell you, it's not a coincidence. I can tell you that right now. Definitely. I'm keep going, Tone. Keep going. Where you going? Yeah, that's where I'm at.
9, 10?
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at. Yes.
I think it's just a crazy coincidence. I think like 1. All right. NBA awards time. Do I have my... Oh, I don't have my trophy. I'm sorry. All right.
Oh, boy.
We'll just have to give it out. Let's start with a big one. Because I think we agree on this one. So I want to start with it. Who is the MVP this season?
I think it's Giannis. I said that from the beginning of the season. I think that it was his award to lose. He's kept that team afloat. Even when Middleton went out of the lineup in COVID protocol, when Drew Holiday was hurt for the time that he was hurt, and Giannis kept that team afloat. And now they're 2 games out of first place in the Eastern Conference, and they're tied for. There's a 3-way tie for second, and they're 2 games out of first place. Every category that Joker is at the top of the league in, Giannis is right behind him, and his team is better, and that matters. That absolutely winning matters, especially in this particular situation. Winning absolutely matters. So
let me ask you this: you mentioned, because you mentioned Joker, so he leads, and then Giannis is probably 2, right? But Giannis's team has more wins. But you said it that Giannis's team is better. Do you think if the roster is better, do you think that shouldn't that help Jokic versus help Giannis?
No, and the reason why I don't agree with that, Tone, is because when I see MVPs of the past who win with just as much as what some other guy wins with, when I think about the 93-94 Houston Rockets, Tone, do you think Vernon Maxwell was a top 30 player in the NBA?
No.
How about Kenny Smith? You think he was a top 30 player in the NBA?
No offense to the Jet, but no.
And I love Kenny Smith. How about Otis Thorpe? You think Otis Thorpe was a top 25 player in the NBA?
At that time?
Yeah.
No.
Otis Thorpe. Right. So and we talking about Olajuwon, who won the league MVP that year, and he won Defensive Player of the Year. So with that being said, I look at what Jokic is doing, and I can't fight it. He leads the league in PER. He's second in the league. I think he's second in the league in rebounding. You know, he's at the top of the league in all of these categories. Giannis is literally right behind him. And everything that he's ahead in, Giannis is literally right behind him, and he's got a better team. The fact, and he's not a better team. That's not what I want to say. And his team
had more
is
wins,
better. Yeah, his team is better. So
yeah, and because of him.
Right.
Let me ask you a question. Who would you say are the top 4 candidates right now?
The top 4 candidates right now are, I think, Giannis. I think it's Embiid. I think it's Joker. And that 4th one is tricky, Tone, and I'm going to give you a reason why. That 4th one is tricky. I hear a lot of Devin Booker.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of Devin Booker. I hear a lot of Jason Tatum. I don't think Jason Tatum is realistic, even though he's been playing great. He's turning into everything that I thought that he would turn into. Him and the DeRozan talk has died down. But I hear a lot of Devin Booker lately, which I'm going to put something on your mind, Tone.
Well, you can't. Sorry to interrupt. I'll say the DeMar DeRozan talk has died down because his team's now 6th seed,
right?
Behind dropped. The Raptors,
right? They've dropped, and yeah, of course they absolutely dropped. And I don't think that we give DeMar DeRozan enough credit for what he did for that team throughout the season,
right?
Because they were at the top of the Eastern Conference for the majority of the season. I mean, they fell off like the last month or so, but other than that, they were at the top of the they were at the top of the East. But I got something to put on your mind, Tone. You talk about Devin Booker now being a candidate for league MVP. I think Draymond Green has him as his league MVP. Tone, did you know
Damian Lillard said if you don't have him at the top of your list, you're crazy.
Damian Lillard also has him at the top of the list. Did you know, Tone, that this season, not DeMar DeRozan, Devin Booker, his numbers are the exact same as Donovan Mitchell's last season?
See, and what did I say last season? The fact that Donovan Mitchell was getting absolutely no consideration at all is because they're in Utah.
He's in Utah, absolutely. And take this a step further, Tone. Not only did Donovan Mitchell not sniff the league MVP, he didn't make the All-NBA team. Not only did he not make first team or second team, he didn't make the All-NBA team. And by the way, this Utah team that he was on last year finished in first place.
First place. Overall.
Not in the Western Conference. No, they finished in first place.
Do you remember how many wins they had?
52.
52?
They played 10 less games last season than they did this season.
That's right.
That's why. So they were on pace to win 62 games last year. Right? They were on pace to win 62 games. And now they're talking about breaking that team up. Now they're like at the end of the season, Gobert, Mitchell, like we got to break it up. I already told you what the problem is, Tone. I digress. I look at what Donovan Mitchell did last season, and I look at his numbers, which are very similar, if not the same. PER, points per game, all of those intangible numbers. Yeah. Everything that you see, everything is the same. Donovan didn't sniff the league MVP, and I'm trying to remember, Tone, in all my years of watching the NBA, a player whose team finished in first place overall in the NBA. And not only got some consideration for league MVP, he didn't make the All-NBA team. I don't think I've ever seen that, Tone.
Where did those early 2000 Pistons? Were they ever the number 1 seed? Because that would be the only one I could think of.
Yeah,
that maybe a player wouldn't have been.
In 2006, they were in a 05-06 season. I think they won 63 or 64 games. Here's the thing, though, Tone. They didn't have a 26 game guy on their team.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That'd be the only time that a team was not there. It would be that's the only one I could think of.
They didn't have that. So I'm thinking to myself, this is incredible that Devin Booker is now considered the league MVP. It says a lot to where you play because Phoenix and Salt Lake aren't the same. We all know that they're not the same. But to answer your question, Tone, I think Giannis is the league MVP.
So the reason I asked you who the top 4 candidates are is because when you look at the offensive numbers, right, a case can be made for Embiid, for Giannis, for Jokic, I guess for Booker. I'm not on that boat. The difference is, when I look at the other side of the ball that everyone seems to forget that we actually play well, not everybody plays defense. Maybe that's why, but it is part of the game. I think still
a huge part. In fact, not just a part of the game. It's a huge part.
Which one of those other 4 are an elite defender that changed the game on the defensive end?
Man, we're gonna get to that when you get to your other questions about me too. Absolutely.
And the answer is none of them.
Yeah.
Correct. So if offense is that close, if the team, even if people say, well, the team records are close, it's just, the seeding. Don't look at seeding, look at wins. Okay, fine. Team wins, blah blah blah. That's your team. Who does it on both sides of the ball? It's only one guy. And now I get it. Some people don't want to give it to him because he already has two. But at the end of the day, if he's, I hate the whole voting fatigue thing. That drives me nuts. If you are the MVP, you need to be the MVP. And I think he wins it. And I think this is the other part. I think people are looking way too far into the future. Oh man, if we give him another one, where is he going to be on that all-time list? Who cares? Let him.
Right.
He's earned it.
That's
Let
kind of
him.
what this is about. That's what this is about.
You know what
that's
I mean?
Kind of what we're doing here.
Like people look at, in 10 years, what is he going to be a top 10? Good. If he wins
idea.
2-3 more chips and wins 2-3 more MVPs, he deserves to be there. Let it happen.
It's kind of the idea.
So yeah, I got Giannis too, obviously, and it's more so because, like I said, the offensive numbers, you can make a case for all of them. On defense, you can't.
It's not close, Tone. I don't think it's
not close.
When I think about the defensive side of the basketball, it's not close, and we're going to get to that.
Okay, so I think we're both on Giannis, and it's we told you why. All right, most improved player.
This one is a tough one for me because I absolutely love Dejounte Murray from San Antonio. I love him, but I love this kid Garland too in Cleveland. Tone. I think he's absolutely fantastic. Turned himself into an all-star. 20-8 for the season. So he's become their franchise point guard. He's been doing everything that they need. There hasn't been a guy, with the exception of Dejounte Murray, that I'm looking at. There have been guys who've made the leap. Miles Bridges has gotten better. Ja Morant, guys like that. But when I think about a guy who's been steady and who's been solid, it's Dejounte Murray and Darius Garland. These are the two guys I think that are up for the most improved. And when I think about the guy that I want to go with, I just think that Dejounte Murray, man, when I look at him as a franchise point guard, and I love Garland. I think Cleveland has found their point guard of the future. I think they got him, and there's no question about it. But I look at Dejounte Murray. He reminds me of a more athletic version of Fat Lever. Lafayette Fat Lever that used to play for the Denver Nuggets. That's who he reminds me of. He's got a very similar game to him. He does a lot of things with not just with the basketball, off the basketball, his ability to rebound, his ability to defend. I think that's a lot. I think that has a lot to do with him being in that Pop system. Pop demands you to be a defender as well. You're not just gonna chuck the ball, and that, even though that may be the way the game is going, but Pop demands that. And I think that Dejounte Murray has definitely made that jump this year, and I think he's the most improved player, with Garland basically right there.
So you were between Murray, Garland, you're going Murray.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Murray's also one of my candidates, but it's interesting. You mentioned Ja, and because of Ja, I watch a lot more let's not say probably. I watch way more Grizzlies games because of Ja. And watching those games, I noticed another guy that I probably wouldn't, let's be honest, wouldn't even be aware of if I wasn't watching Grizzlies game. Desmond Bane.
Yeah.
Who I was I was like, who is that? Like every time I see a play, I'm kind of like, other than the spectacular job plays, I'm like, who? Mm-hmm. Every time I watch a Grizzlies game, I'm always seeing him going, and I'm like, wow. Oh, I got to pay attention to him. And then a couple more games, I said, that's him again. It just it keeps popping up. So I was on that kind of Murray train, but I think, and again, I'll be completely transparent. I'm watching more Grizzlies games than Spurs games, but it's not like I'm not watching Spurs games. But I'm going to go with Desmond Bane for me. But it's close between those guys, and it's interesting because Garland. We should give Garland, his flowers, because Cleveland thought they had their point guard in Sexton, and he just came in and snatched that job away and said, "Nope, I'm the point guard of the future." So, all credit to Garland. He's played fantastic this year, and him and that team, right, has them in the playoffs. I think they're in the play-in game, but still in that play-in tournament nonsense. But no one expected them to be in the top 10. So that's a testament to them. All right, the next one is, this one's gonna get. I know we're gonna fight on this one. Rookie of the year.
The rookie of the year, I started the season with Evan Mobley, and I still stand on that. Now, I'm remembering the last guy to win Rookie of the Month, 3 times and not win Rookie of the Year, and that was, I think, Carmelo Anthony did that. Yeah, I think Carmelo Anthony did that in the 02-03 season when he was a
well,
rookie.
The chosen one was in the same class, so
and James
they already predetermined who it was going to be. So
that may be true, Tone, because I'm trying to make sense of how I'm the best rookie every month for more than half the season, but I'm not Rookie of the Year. Yeah. So that's the same logic with Josh Giddey. I mean, I think he was Rookie of the Month 4 times, but when I look at what Evan Mobley has done, the case that you just made for Giannis, I'm thinking the same thing with Evan Mobley on the defensive side of the basketball. I think he's going to be the first rookie since Tim Duncan to make the All-League defensive team. I think he's right there as one of the better defenders in the game. Now, his 15 and 8 as a rook, I think that's great, and I think that what he's brought to that Cleveland team, I think that's largely what they've done is largely due to his contribution to them. Absolutely. So when I think about Rook of the Year, I like Scotty Barnes. Josh Giddey, but I started with Evan Mobley, and I'm sticking with Evan Mobley. He's my guy.
No, Cade Cunningham.
Cade Cunningham came on late.
That's the talk I keep hearing a lot of him because he's putting up the best numbers.
Yes, he's putting up the best numbers, but he came on late. When I think about a guy in terms of being consistent, Evan Mobley was that guy. Scotty Barnes was that guy. Right out the gate, these guys were that guy right from the beginning. They were playing. We didn't know. We had the first month. We weren't sure when Cade Cunningham was even going to get back in the lineup. We wasn't sure when that was going to happen. Now, don't get me wrong, Tone. As of the last month or two, he's been phenomenal, and I think that Detroit has their lead guard of the future with him. However, when you're talking about consistency, Scotty Barnes, Giddey, Evan Mobley, these guys have been consistent the entire season, and I think Evan Mobley has been the most consistent.
I think what happens is, especially with these awards, people look at what you do, the second half, the last quarter of the season. Yeah. I've seen people say, Jokic is starting to run away with the MVP award because of what he's done this week. I'm like, no,
that's nuts.
It's a year. It's an award for the year. So you have to look at as nice as so you're telling me that someone who starts off bad but finishes strong is better than someone who starts off strong and finishes average? I don't know. I think when you combine the full season, anyways. So that being said, that's why I hear a lot of Cade Cunningham talk. He's got the numbers. My thing is with numbers, and people always accuse me of being a stats guy, and I keep fighting with them and saying, no, I think stats are a piece of the puzzle. So yes, does stats matter? Yes. Does production matter? Yes. Does skill matter? Yes. Does talent matter? Yes. Does winning matter? Yes. Do rings matter for different conversations? Yes. Different levels, different weights of how much they matter, but they all matter. Mm-hmm. But when someone says, I'm just going to go off for a second. When someone says, who's a better 3-point shooter, as an example? Well, if one person shoots it more at a higher percentage than the other person, or they shoot it the same amount, the same volume and this person's at a higher percentage, well, they're the better 3-point shooter. Well, this person has more contested ones and theirs are wide open. And are you what? The fact that I'm just like, I want to strangle people's necks when they say, well, his percentage is lower because he shoots more contested. Well, then don't shoot them. If they're that contested, a double team or tougher, yeah, they're tougher.
That's the nut. That logic makes me nuts when I say that. Well, he makes tougher shots.
He makes tougher shots. Give me a break. Now, I will say this. If you're comparing all time and you're saying, well, Steve Kerr has a higher percentage, right, than Curry. So is Kerr better than Curry? Well, no, because Curry shot like 10,000 more attempts. So the volume isn't equal. But if the volume's pretty much like give or take the same, and this person has a higher percentage, that's it. They're the better shooter. I don't care. If you and me shoot the same amount of free throws, and I'm at 92% and you're at 91%, I'm a better free throw shooter. That's it. Is anyone going to say, well, Jay shoots a lot more in the fourth quarter, and Tone shoots more in the first quarter, so
Tone didn't shoot as many to ice the game as Jay did. So give me a break, man.
Like, come on, it's you're trying to make an excuse.
That does matter, the fact that he went to the stripe more than Tone did in the meat and potatoes of the game, and
Anyways, so all that being said, so that's why Cunningham, although has the numbers, he's also on a really bad team, and so when you're the main person, and I get it, people, defenses might shift to you, but also if you're on a team that's losing all the time, you're getting more opportunities to put up points. Let's just be honest.
Wise man told me, Tone.
So for me, the rookie comes down to the rookie of the year comes down to a couple of guys, and that's why I kind of, even with Giddey too, like he's just on a bad team. Who else is on that team? You're going to get opportunities. So yeah, of course you're going to put up numbers, and people look at this as a numbers award. I do to a certain extent, but not completely. So it is for me between Mobley and Barnes. Now, I'm not taking into account that the Raptors are now ahead of the Cavs, 5th seed versus I think the 7th seed are the Cavs. But I look at their numbers, and I look and I say, okay, well, statistically, they're close. They're both about 15-7, 15-8. I think Barnes has a few more assists. Well, what do they do for their team, and what is around them? So on the Cavs, who are the star veteran players that are the 1, 2, 3 options on the Cavs? None. Who are the star? I say star, not superstar. Veteran option 1, 2, 3 on the Raptors. Well, you got Fred VanVleet, Siakam, OG Anunoby to a certain extent. So for Barnes to be putting up the same type of numbers as the 4th or 5th option on a team that's the 5th seed, I think he's playing more. I think he's doing a better job with where his situation than someone who is the main guy or this option 2. So that's why you obviously know where I'm going, why I'm swaying to Barnes, because not only does he provide incredible defense. Now, is he as good defensively as Mobley? No. But for that team that is let's be honest, if the Raptors are winning games, it's because of their defense, right? Their offense can be scary at times. So it's defensively. So he's doing that. He's the only rookie since Magic Johnson to start at every position: point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, center in a game. The only one since Magic. He ball handles. People need to watch this kid pass, by the way. I see him take a rebound, take one dribble and a full court bounce pass right on the money. Like, his passing is way underrated. So I see all the things that he does, because he shoots, he passes, he runs the offense, he rebounds, he plays defense. He literally does everything. So I'm like, man, Mobley's close, but I give it to Barnes by that much.
Now, with that being said, Tone, wouldn't it be, I think it would be more difficult for me. I think it would be less difficult for me to be a number 3 or a number 4 on a good team, because VanVleet, Siakam, these guys are taking a lot of attention away from people who have to deal with me. I'm just a rook, as opposed to I'm on a team where we don't have VanVleet, we don't have Siakam, and I got to do a lot of the grunt work. Not only do I have to do a lot of the grunt work, they're depending on me to do a lot of the grunt work, and I'm actually delivering. So when I think about being on a quote-unquote bad team, because like you just said, I had Cleveland on the outside looking in before the season started. I had them at the bottom of the play-in tournament. I had them around 12. And for them to turn around the way that they did, and for Mobley to be the integral part of what they've been doing, I think that gives him the edge, simply because what they have. So nobody really thought that Garland was going to do what he was doing. We saw VanVleet. He's on a championship team. So I knew VanVleet was going to be a good player this year. Yeah. Siakam coming back healthy. Well, Kevin Love, we didn't know how good Kevin Love would be off the bench. We didn't know what Markin was going to do, because he got ran out of Chicago. Jared Allen isn't exactly a force in the post offensively. So essentially that offense, there was a stretch where they were running it through him, and he was delivering. So when I think about giving a guy the edge, like you just said, it slightly goes to Evan Mobley, but yeah. I think that they do have their franchise player, no doubt.
See, but that's where we look at it different. Like, the offense, like you said, went through him, and he's putting up the same numbers as the guy who's the 4th option. So in my mind, would Barnes be putting up better numbers if he was the number 2 option instead of the number 4 option? And then if he did have better numbers, because that's what people are looking at, well, then he'd probably be the clear-cut winner. That's why I said there's no wrong answer.
Well, that's what I was about. I was about to counter with that, Tom, because I could say the same thing about Mobley getting on Cleveland. Well, he on a better team. Would he be playing better? So that 15, could that be 19? Could that be 20? So
if you're the 4th option, you typically score less than the 2nd option. Typically, you get less opportunities.
Less opportunities.
There's always exceptions. Fair enough. Okay. Defensive Player of the Year. So I know you were ready for this one. So
absolutely. So you mentioned something a couple of minutes ago about the league MVP and where the disparity was. On offense, it was close. Joker and Giannis and Embiid and Devin Booker offensively, these guys are close. Giannis is at the top of the league in defensive rating, right? Giannis is at the top. Giannis is in the top 15 in the league in blocks. And if you take the numbers away, which I'm not going to do that because the numbers matter. He's got a better defensive rating than all of those guys. Not only does he have a better defensive rating, when I think about him coming up with big plays, I saw the Philadelphia game two weeks ago, stopping Embiid at the end of the game to save the game. Mm-hmm. And he's been doing stuff like that all season long. That's not something that he just did a couple of weeks ago. He's done that all season long. I dig what Miles Bridges does. Tone, when I watch Miles Bridges, he reminds, and you're a Laker guy, so you can appreciate this. I was a huge Eddie Jones fan. And I was a huge Eddie Jones fan. And that's who I see when I see him. I see maybe a slightly less athletic version of Eddie Jones. That's who I'm looking at when I look at Miles Bridges and his ability on the defensive end to disrupt things and to cause trouble. I'm loving him as a defender. Him, Rudy, and Bam are the four guys that I'm thinking about. But I think at the top of that list, I think it's Giannis. I think he's the league MVP, and I think he's the defensive player of the year.
I really want to give it to Marcus Smart. And I don't know if it's because it's just like a lifetime achievement award.
That's exactly what it is, Tone. That's why you want to give it to him. For that reason right there.
Because I hate Marcus Smart and I love Marcus Smart. You know what I mean? Like if he's playing against, one of my teams or whatever, it's just like I want to strangle that dude. And then I'm like, but if you ever ask me who do I want in the backcourt with me, it's Marcus Smart. I'm like, because I know what I do well, and I know what I don't do well, and he does all that stuff that I don't want to do, like just nasty. So I want to bring up his name. I know that if you look at the numbers and he's probably not in the conversation with those guys. Because all the guys you mentioned are the ones who should be leading it. But I really want to. And also, I want to say this. On a team that, started off shaky and, wasn't sure how everything was going to fit. And people were saying Marcus Smart is the problem. And Jaylen Brown and Tatum can't fit together. Man, they figured it out. Boy, did they figure it out. And the Celtics look like the team that's going to really give the Bucs the hardest challenge. In the East, and that's no disrespect to the Heat or the Sixers. The Celtics look like that team now. Mm-hmm. So I want to put Marcus Smart's name out there, but when I do look at the numbers, heck, when I watch games, is there anybody that affects a game more defensively? Like maybe Gobert, maybe. But Giannis just, like you said, I just anytime if they need a 3 to win, I'm like, oh, Giannis is going to block that, right? Oh, he's got a good look inside. He's open. Oh no, Giannis is blocking that. Like he just so much, and his passion for playing defense, because once people start to score, the defense is kind of like, well, let me take a little break here. Let me have a little rest.
Hey, coach, not like that. Mm-hmm.
Let's go into a zone, coach. Give me a minute to take a breath. Mm-hmm. He's not that dude. So
Giannis is give it to him again. Give it to him again.
I don't want to put any bad kind of juju on him, but like I could see MVP, DPOY, and Finals MVP.
Don't stop there, Tom. How about I lead the league in scoring too? Don't leave that part out.
Oh, that's right.
Don't leave that part out. That's very important to mention that.
Can we pause there? Do you think because James, I believe, has to play 2 more games
to which qualify? He's not going to play, by the way. Yeah,
do you think he's going to do it?
No, I don't think he's going to do it.
If he does do it, is it selfish?
Yeah. They're already out.
Will he do
They're already out. They're already out of the playoffs. So what other reason would he be doing it for?
Plays 2 games, gets his.
What other reason would he be doing it for? It would be solely to put this on my resume that I led the league in scoring at 37 years old. It wouldn't be for anything else. What else would it be for?
It's a pretty good thing to put on your resume.
Absolutely, it is. But
listen,
and by the way,
I don't necessarily like to volunteer, but I do it because it looks.
And I'm looking at it going, I don't have a problem with it. Yeah. People will say, well, is it selfish? Yeah, but do I have a problem with it? No, I don't have a problem with it at all.
I don't know what the schedule looks like, but wouldn't it be funny if he comes back selfishly for the 2 games, and everyone will know it's to qualify to, and then Giannis has the game after. And it's like, well, Giannis has to put up, like 55, 60 points to go up that 0.1 and beat him. And then he does it. Because we've seen it. We've seen David Robinson put up 71, right? We've seen, I'm forgetting back. I don't know if it was George Gervin or
George Gervin
and
David Thompson.
David Thompson,
yep.
Putting up like crazy numbers. So it happens.
It's not nuts,
do
Tone. They will. Absolutely, they will.
That's interesting.
So think about that for a second, Tone. I'm the league MVP. Actually, let me rephrase that. I led the league in scoring. I'm the league MVP. I'm the defensive player of the year. We win the NBA championship, and I'm the finals MVP.
Has anyone done that before?
Never
all of them, right?
Never.
I know that Hakeem has MVP, DPOY, finals MVP. Jordan has MVP, finals MVP. I don't think the year he won defensive player of the year, he did not. He didn't go to the finals that year.
Did lead the league in scoring, though.
Yeah, he did lead the league in scoring. But could you imagine lead the league in scoring and defensive player of the year and MVP?
I'm the best offensive and defensive player in the game. And there would be any debate about him being the best player on the planet would be dispelled.
Over. Yeah, it's over.
It wouldn't even be a question.
Even
though I think he is anyway.
And he would catapult. I don't know where was he? Do you remember where he was in the top 75? Was he? He was in
18.
18?
Which I think is nuts, by the way. But
I thought he was lower. I was gonna say he just rocket ships into that conversation that we don't want to have right now. Okay, so that's our individual awards. Let's do a couple of team. When I say the word surprise, do you think good or bad?
Good.
Okay, so let's keep it that way. Biggest team surprise.
The biggest team surprise is Cleveland. Tone, I didn't think that they would do anything. I really didn't. I didn't think that Cleveland would be in any part or in any fashion in the playoffs. I thought that they were them. There are a bunch of teams that I didn't think would do much. There was a point during the season, injuries kind of derailed what they had going on with Jared Allen. Evan Mobley had gone out of the lineup. But before that happens, they were almost a 2. They were a 2 seed at one point. Cleveland was. So what Bickerstaff has done with that unit and to have them at the top of the Eastern Conference, when we're talking about a team before the season started, no All-Stars and people thinking Kevin Love was washed, which I was in that. I was also in that category. I was amongst those people who thought that Kevin Love was over. And for this team to do what they did, and for Bickerstaff to have them playing the way he had them playing, they are without a doubt the biggest surprise for me. And if they were healthy, I think that they would cause a lot of trouble in this playing tournament. A lot.
Where do you think Memphis was going to finish at the beginning of the season?
I had Memphis at 8.
It's a bit of a surprise. It's a bit of a surprise as the number 2 seed.
Even bigger surprise. They're an even bigger surprise. Memphis is a team that I did not have at the top of the Western Conference. I definitely had them, Portland, at the bottom of the play-in tournament. I didn't have them at the top of the Western Conference. And I think that's largely due to the fact, Tone, that Memphis got a really good team, man. Like we talk about Ja being this and Ja being that. Damn, Memphis got a good team. Jaren Jackson
even when he's out, they're
yes,
winning.
They rolling. Jaren Jackson is one of the better defenders in the game. You talk about Bane. Every time I watch Bane, the fact that Brooks got hurt elevated Bane and made Bane and just basically catapulted Bane, not just into the starting lineup, just basically gave him the green light too, because this dude is hurt. So I get the rock. I think they're 8, 9 deep. They got an awesome team. But when you're talking about getting to the next step, you always need that guy, Tone. And it's Ja that guy. Because once again, Tone, they got a great team, but they need that guy. Who is that guy for them? Is it Ja?
They why Memphis worries me is when you look at them defensively, right? They're one of the best in terms of holding teams, like points per game. I think they lead the league in blocks. They lead the league in steals. Like they're just on it. But then you look at the other side of the ball, and look, they can score. Don't get me wrong, they score. But I also see a team that is kind of 18, 19 field goal percentage. 18, 19, 20th in the league in 3-point shooting percentage. Like, they don't shoot the ball relative to the other teams in the league very well.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes me nervous, because in the playoffs, things tighten up a little bit, and you need to hit your shots, because you're not going to get as many. The pace of the game slows down. So that's what worries about. But I think is Ja that guy today? I don't know. You know how I feel. I love Ja. My second favorite player in the league. But I don't know if this year's the year. But they could go on a run. So I'm not going to. But my biggest surprise, I think you know where I'm going with my biggest surprise, because this team played 72 road games last year.
Yeah, they did.
And everybody wrote them off. They're like, they're trash, they're garbage, their team's too young. Who's this Barnes kid they drafted? They should have gone with Suggs. Remember that talk? That talk died down pretty quick.
It didn't take long.
I think everybody had them, just like last year, out of the playoffs, out of the top 10. Heck, at the beginning of the year, most people don't remember, I wasn't even sure if they were going to be playing in Toronto. They might have been. There was talk about Buffalo. There was talk about playing in Tampa again. Guess what happened? They came back. They started to figure it out. Do you remember what I told you when they drafted Barnes? And I said, I'm confused by it, but I said they got a bunch of 6'8", 6'9" guys with like 7-foot wingspans. And put that together with Nick Nurse and the way his defensive schemes. These guys are going to be chaos on defense. Guess what they are? They're chaos on defense. And they're the 5th seed. So that's why I have them a little bit over Cleveland, because Cleveland, both Toronto and Cleveland, everyone kind of thought out of the playoffs. The fact that they're the 5 and 7 seed is crazy. And let me tell you this. I know teams right now, some will admit it, some won't. They don't want. Do you want to face the Raptors in the first round?
They're going to be a tough out. They're going to be a
if
really
you're the
tough
Philadelphia,
out.
if you're the Philadelphia 76ers, I've said this before, because right now that's what it's looking like Philadelphia, Toronto. If you're the Philadelphia 76ers, now it's a different Toronto team, don't get me wrong, but Nick Nurse can scheme to make Embiid's life very difficult, because you saw him do it a couple of years ago. It's not the same Philadelphia 76ers team, though, either. They don't have Simmons. They don't have Butler anymore. It's a different team. Now, granted, the Raptors don't have Kawhi or Kyle Lowry, etc. I get it, Serge Ibaka. Marc Gasol. It's a very different team. But if he can scheme a way to make Embiid's life difficult, I don't think anybody has faith in Harden in the playoffs.
I don't.
There's an upset wow. You think Joel Embiid was crying the last time they beat him? Whew, if he loses to this team, that's gonna hurt.
It would look really bad, Tone. And I look at this Toronto team, and I'm looking at this matchup that they have in the first round. I do think that Embiid would just be, if he could just be the force that he is.
He has to, because they don't have a big that can just go. That's why I say they got to scheme. They got to scheme for him.
If he could be the force that he is, and Toronto would have to go a lot of zone. They'd have to do a lot of jump. They'd have to do a lot of traps. They'd have to do a lot of digs with the guards, not just trapping with double teaming with bigs. They'd have to do a lot of digging down with guards just to disrupt Embiid's rhythm. Right. But I'll tell you what, this series, if it lingers, very much like last year with Atlanta, you let these dudes hang around. Next thing you know, game 5, game 6, these guys are still here. You're gonna get yourself in a situation where
you don't want to be.
You can't get yourself out of. So I don't think you want that. I do not think you want that.
Yeah. Now the question mark for Toronto obviously is their scoring, but you know this. You get hot for a couple of games. Fred can get hot. We saw Fred against Milwaukee in the title run, right? Mm-hmm. Where he disappeared, right? Then his wife gives birth to his son, and then he can't miss.
Yeah, all of a sudden he's rolling.
You can go on those runs. So that's my biggest surprise. Not to the other side. Maybe it's obvious.
It's not. Take maybe out, Tom. Say what you just said again. Say it again. Take maybe out. Take it out.
It's pretty obvious.
Yes, absolutely it is. It's absolutely. It's not even a question. No matter if I look at the Trailblazers, if I look at Golden State, if I look at Utah, none of those teams hold a candle to the disappointment. Nets. The Brooklyn Nets, None of those teams hold a candle to the disappointment that I have.
Is the Brooklyn Nets.
No, it's not. It is not.
Yeah, they were supposed to be you had them at the number 1 seed.
And they were the number 1 seed. And like Kevin Durant said, quote, my knee injury derailed our season. He's absolutely correct about that. Absolutely. Because even with Kyrie Irving in and out of the lineup, he was leading the league in scoring, and they still were at the top of the Eastern Conference for a long time. When he got hurt, they went in the tank. They absolutely went the other way. So with that being said, there is no team, Tone, that we've seen this year that has been more disappointing. And I can't believe that you, being the homer that you are, won't just eat it, Tone. This is the epitome of a disappointment with this Laker team. And not only is it a disappointment, Tone, this is the same team that we actually got sick of talking about it. And the reason why we got sick of talking about it is because it was the same thing over and over. It wasn't this week it was something different. This week it was this. This week it was that. Every time we talked about these guys, it was the same thing. Rotations, transition defense, rebounding. Handle it. No, they can't handle it. Absolutely not. The biggest disappointment by far is the Lakers.
I want to give honorable mention to the Brooklyn Nets because they are the 9th seed with all those players, and I get it, injuries, people in and out of the lineup, but still the 8th seed, 9th seed, they're game 2 back of the 10th seed. So that's disappointing. It is disappointing. I get it, injuries and that. It is disappointing. But it's funny. I got attacked. Don't ever say anything. Don't ever say anything bad about LeBron James, by the way, on TikTok, because I got attacked because I didn't even say anything. I don't know if you know this. I didn't say anything. I just said same energy activated. Because at the beginning of the season, when everyone was criticizing, including me, a bunch of geriatrics that they pulled into that team and, all time, a bunch of Hall of Famers, and we all kind of went, that's not a good mix of players. Rust to the Lakers doesn't make sense. I don't know how that team's going to coexist. I don't think that team is – I told you, I don't like the coach there either. I didn't like anything about what the Lakers did.
You didn't like Vogel from the beginning.
I didn't like Vogel from the beginning. And people say, well, he won them a chip in the bubble. So I didn't like anything that they did. And what did LeBron James say? You know what? You guys are calling us old. Don't worry. You give us that same energy at the end of the season when you see where we are. Okay. So I just said, okay, I'll give you the same energy. And it was like, you're a LeBron hater. Why are you picking on him? No, I'm not picking on him. He had a great season. And I'm not, notice I said period. I didn't say for a 37-year-old. I said he had a great season.
He did.
Period. He's phenomenal. Period. That team stunk.
Trash.
That team stunk.
Say it, Tone.
Okay? The collection of players they had, okay, trash. Stunk. Coaching stunk. Defense stunk. Offensive execution stunk.
I'm sorry.
Did I say coaching? I'm going to say it again. Coaching stunk. Defensive effort stunk. Everything about that team stunk.
Trash.
And that's the team. That's the team we are. That that they had this. If this is why when people always say to me, I am going to make it about Jordan for a second. People always say to me, "Well, Jordan's Bulls were always the favorites by Vegas to win the championship, so he only won as a favorite." All right, you know who was the number 2 team favorited to win the championship this season?
The Lakers.
The Lakers. So sometimes Vegas gets it wrong. So let's not just go whatever Vegas says. They were the number 2 most likely team. It was supposed to be Lakers and Nets. It was finally going to happen. The super team versus the super team.
No.
Super teams, death. Anyways. Oh, you know what?
Since we on that subject.
Since we on that, let's go to mail drop. First question. I swear I forgot that was the first question. Is this the death of the NBA SuperTeam?
I don't know if it's the death tone more than it is the rebirth of the duo. I think that's what we're going back to. When I see what Philadelphia is doing with James Harden and Joel Embiid, what I see in Milwaukee, how they build in that unit, right? What I see in Golden State, what I see in with the majority of the teams, I think that it's going to be the rebirth of going back to the dynamic duo. because the super team, in the sense, I've never really been a fan of that phrase, because when I think about super teams, it's really subjective. Because when you think about a super team, were the Bulls a super team, even though that team was built from the ground up, and they were awesome. You know, Jordan was on a team. Four of Jordan's 6 championship teams won 60 games or more. You know, 3 of them won 65 games or more. So was that a super team?
And all the starters were drafted or traded on draft day.
Right.
On the
absolutely.
first repeat, and only one big free agent on the other second one.
Was that a super team too? So when I think about the term super team, that's really subjective. But I think that it's more a rebirth of the dynamic duo, Jabbar, Magic, Kobe and Shaq. Because that thing worked, Tone. So next year, like when the Clippers get back, when they get healthy, so Leonard and Paul George will be together again, right? We're gonna see Joel Embiid and James Harden next year.
And whoever they trade Harden for.
You know, we're gonna see Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. I think we're moving back more to the dynamic duo more than it's the death of the super team. I think it's more of a rebirth of the super team.
I'll say this. I hope it's the death of the so-called super team. Because I don't believe in super teams. I call none of them a super team. I call nobody a super team. Let's be clear. I'm not calling the Heat a super team. I didn't call the Celtics a super team. I didn't call the Warriors a super team. None of them. Because I believe you need to play super if I'm going to call you a super team, not just put together a bunch of people who on paper look good. Because we've seen this fail more than it's succeeded, right? Like, even if you look at the Heat, right, when they did Bosh and Wade and LeBron, well, they won 2 of 4. Yeah, they went to the finals all 4 years. They were 500, because the point is winning a title, not getting there. They were 500. We saw the Lakers bring in Karl Malone and Gary Payton, and although Karl Malone got hurt, and that's probably the reason, that team didn't win. They lost in the final. Failure. We've now seen the Brooklyn Nets fail. Now, they still have a chance, I guess, but it's a really tough road for them if they're going to get to the final and win it this season. Obviously, we talked about the Lakers. That failed.
The Rockets.
So I hope, the Rockets when they brought in Barkley and So although it worked when they brought in Drexler, and that's the thing, and that brings my point to where I want to go is I hope that it's the death of the super team and an understanding. Look at the teams that have longevity in terms of success. They build through the draft. They work with their player. They make their teams better. They develop their talent, right? And then look, if you got to make trades. It's not to say you don't bring trades, but when we're talking about super team, it's about bringing in superstars. And what they might do is bring in one piece, right? So I'll give you examples, because someone said, I used this example before, and I said the Raptors as an example, and they said, "What are you talking about? They brought in Kawhi." Well, yeah, they brought in, that was their superstar, but Lowry was traded for when he was supposedly trash. DeMar DeRozan was drafted, and that was the piece they needed to trade for Kawhi. Siakam was a G leaguer that they developed. Fred VanVleet was an undrafted player that they signed and developed. Like OG Anunoby, same thing, although he didn't get to play in the playoffs due to an injury. All of those guys, right? So, and then look, you're going to trade for Marcus Gasol and Serge Ibaka. Those are pieces, like role players. I'm talking about core. And that one's kind of a bit of a stretch. But then I look at the Warriors, and they're like, Warriors are a super team. They drafted Clay. They drafted Steph. They drafted Draymond. They traded for a veteran in Iguodala or signed him as free agent, whatever. And then the one big move they did, right? They brought in KD. They brought drafted Harrison Barnes. Yeah, they brought in that one piece, and they became super. But they had one without KD before. So look at the Spurs. Spurs drafted David Robinson. They drafted Tim Duncan. They drafted Manu. They drafted Parker. And they built the teams that have longevity of success. Those are the teams that, look, you have to make trades. You have to bring in players. I get that. But the core, the bulk of the players are drafted, are in their system, or traded for early on in their careers. Name me a team that has longevity when they, even the Lakers, it's a draft day trade for Kobe, right? The rest of those players on that team, and then they bring in, and they bring in Shaq. If I go back to the Kareem Lakers, they trade for Kareem. A couple of years later, they draft Magic, and then the team becomes what the team becomes. Right. Like, it has to be that mix. Can you give me one scenario where they've brought in a bunch of players from the outside, superstar players, and it's worked over a long period of time.
Over a long period of time. So you figure, I mean,
the
Lakers
Boston Big Three won one. That's it.
Right. And they stayed together. I mean, they stayed together for 6 years. They won one.
They won one.
They won one, and they got the. They should have been there 3 times. KG got hurt.
I say that's disappointing, right?
Right. But when I think about putting a unit together like that, right? When I think about putting a unit together like that, you do need a lot of things to go your way too, Tone. So, for example, when I look at that Golden State team that you just talked about, you know, with Steph Curry and Clay and Dre and Harrison Barnes. Well, the fact that Steph Curry got hurt and they were able to get him on a discount and they didn't have to pay him, so that actually
helps. Yep.
That actually elongated. I mean, that gave them longevity in terms of them being a dynasty, because we didn't have to pay him until later. So that helped his development. That helped that unit's development. So
good point.
A lot of things have to happen in order for you to just have a team and draft them.
Yeah. Well, look at the Bulls, right? They never paid Pippen.
Well, they did. Well, they did pay him. Here's the thing, though, Tone.
Let's like a 20-year, $5 million deal that was really team friendly. It was really team friendly.
And they told him that. But Scotty knew that, I need this money. I need this money now.
Yeah.
Scotty could have said no, and he didn't see not only did he not see what the NBA was going to be, he didn't see what he was going to be in 2 years.
Right.
He didn't see what he was going to be. So I think that's a little bit different. Now, again, you do need a lot of things to happen. But in terms of just bringing a group of guys together and it working long term, that haven't drafted and developed, no.
So is this the death of the super team? I doubt it. People are going to try it again. However, I hope that people see that it should be the death of this kind of super team, because the teams, I mentioned the Bulls, all drafted except for, Rodman, or traded on draft day. Look at Milwaukee. Drafted Giannis, that's their big guy, and then they bring in Drew Holiday, right? I think they drafted Chris Middleton too, right? And just bring in that one extra piece. They swap. What did they? Basically, they swapped Bledsoe for Holiday, and that puts them over the top, right? You got to make those pieces, but I think that's how you build a team that's going to be good. I hate to say it, Philadelphia hasn't won a title, and I didn't like the process, but they're good every year, right?
Take it a step further than that, Tom. The NBA champion in 1920 was the Lakers. That's James and AD with a bunch of guys like Rondo.
Yeah.
AD. So the next year, Milwaukee. Last year, next year. The next year was Milwaukee. This year, we're looking at Milwaukee again. So the idea of what the Warriors did or what the Miami Heat did, I think that's dead, Tone. I do.
Well, you know what? Look at the Lakers. They bring in LeBron. Now he gets hurt. They miss the playoffs. They bring in a bunch of free agents. They win a title. They kind of blow it up again, right? And last year they're out in the first round. I get it, injuries, whatever. This year they bring in a bunch of guys. They don't make the playoffs again. Like there's no. It's more likely that you're going to be in the playoffs with a built proper roster, right? I talk about continuity, roles. Like you don't just. I know people do this, but you don't just take everything in your kitchen and throw it into a pot and say, here's food, right?
No, you don't.
You select, this goes with this goes with that. And okay, now we make a meal. So, all right. So hopefully it's the death of the super team. That's my answer. All right. Last one. Best non-sports story from your childhood. It could be funny. It could be sad. It could be sweet.
Best non-sports story from my childhood.
It could be a teenager. It doesn't have to necessarily be.
How about this? In 1989, one of the biggest R&B groups is Guy, Teddy Riley, Aaron Hall. Yes. One of the biggest. Well, they're in Studio 54. I got a buddy of mine named Kevin Burton and another buddy of mine named Juheen. Yo, let's go to Studio 54 tonight to see Guy. There's no way we getting in, but let's just go. I'm 16. I've been this height since I was 16 years old.
I was gonna say 89. I was like 1.
Yeah. Let's just go. And there's no way we getting in. No way, right? So the line is around the corner. We're not even in line. We're just standing in front of the place just to be there. The guy at the door, he points at us. You. Let's go, y'all in. What? Now, mind you, Tone, I'm 16 years old and I'm in Studio 54. No ID, no nothing. Okay? We get in the place. The place is packed. The place is absolutely packed.
Yes.
Yeah, the place is packed. I don't have any idea what I'm doing in here because I'm 16 years old. I'm just in a club. I'm hanging out. So some time passes, we see girls and, we're in Studio 54 and this is awesome. Guy gets on stage. And when I say stage, Tone, Studio 54 isn't that big. So the stage is like right there.
Yeah.
And these dudes get on stage and they rock. And we're standing right there. It was incredible. We get back on the train heading home going, yo, we just saw a guy.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
We just saw a guy.
See, I'd be more like I was in Studio 54 at 16 years old. That's nuts. There's right place, right time. Yeah, you guys, come on in. Let's go.
Yeah.
I got to warn you, I'm going to swear. And I don't cuss. I don't cuss with my story. Mine's a little bit, even though mine's a little bit more wholesome than yours. I had a few when I saw this question come through, and I'm like, which one did I want? So I picked this one because I've never actually told this story, I don't think, on camera. So growing up, I told you we didn't grow up, didn't have a lot of money. My dad was a presser at a dry cleaner, right? So the big machines, like burnt his hands like to smithereens a million times. In the summers, I would go like as a young teen, like, I don't know, 12, 13 years old ish. And I would work for them, like bagging. So he would press them, put them on the thread, and I'd put the that see-through plastic over and cash people out. I got like, I don't know, $5 and a sandwich. So I was like, cool. Hey. Well, from there, when the day was done, we would walk to, now I grew up, as you know, in Toronto. So we'd walk out to the Queen. It was down on Queen Street by the beaches, for those of you that are in Toronto. We'd walk out to the streetcar. We'd jump on the streetcar. We would take it to Bay and Dundas, where the Eaton Center is, again, for people in Toronto who know, because that's where my mom worked, down in that area. So we meet her, and then we'd all go back home together. Now, there's a station in Toronto called City TV, and they used to come around, these guys, and you'd remember this back in like, probably the 80s too, right? Big, huge cameras on their shoulders, and they talk to people like on the street, right? Like the road. Hey, they'd ask you a question and they'd put it on the local news that night. So I see the City Pulse camera guy and the guy with the big ass microphone like this, he's asking questions. So I'm like, of course, I'm like, hey, let's see if they'll ask us a question, right? Well, they see a kid and his dad, so they don't ask me, they ask my dad. My dad doesn't speak English.
Oh boy.
He won't admit this, but like, he came to Canada, never really learned to speak English. Like, so I love, okay. So I'm going to ask the question and I'm going to give you his response, and just keep in mind, he doesn't speak English, for those in case I get in trouble. I'm going to get pulled over after I tell this story. So they go, excuse me, sir, what do you think of the Toronto Maple Leafs? Hockey team, Toronto Maple Leafs. Okay, cool. My dad looks at them, obviously misunderstanding what he said. And he said, what? Fuck the police.
Oh, no, Dad. That's not what they said. Oh, no, Dad. No, that's not what I meant.
And I'm telling you, to this day, I think NWA stole it from him. And I was just like, my face just went red. And I'm like, let's get on the streetcar before anybody. I know they're not going to air that.
No. Can't put that on TV.
And he's like, and the whole time, he's like, what? What did I do wrong? I'm like, dude, you know what you said?
It's my father. I'm sorry. It's my dad. Yeah.
So that's, so when they ask what's the story for, it just always sticks in my head. Anytime anyone says to me, because I don't really follow hockey, what do you think of the Leafs? I'm just like, fuck the police.
No, Dad. That is incredible, Tone. No way.
I love him. Anyways, all right, man. That's it for this week of Fluid and Chill. Do not do that to the police.
Please don't.
They're there to protect you. What we got so much going on. Oh, I know the big news. And then we'll let you go. We've got the 30 all-time teams. Dominic, one of our incredible viewers, listeners, put together a starting five, all-time starting five for all 30 teams. I'm going to send you the list. We're going to rank them, and we're going to start our NCAA greatest all-time team of all-time tournament. We're going to start that next week. We'll talk about it a little bit more on Monday, 8 p.m. live on TikTok. But until then,
take it light. Take it.